covering her trial really taught me everything I needed to know moving forward because it showed me that I couldn't trust mainstream media. We all sat in that trial, and I think majority of journalists agreed. I don't know that they thought she could be convicted on the evidence provided, but that's not what they wrote, and that's not what they were allowed to wrote. I was right. I was the only one writing what we all kind of concluded. But it's just, I mean, if there's so many underage women, why are they not on the cover of the New York Times and standing behind Thomas Massey? Why is it all women who are photographed in these islands as college age girls who were there for years? I know it's not popular to say that if you board the yacht 25 times, you might not be a victim, but at a certain point, we have to be honest about these things because I think it takes away from the real idea of trafficking. It's like we're manipulating these terms. To me, trafficking is children who are ripped off the streets against their will and placed in captive and tortured, and terrible things happen, which I just talked to Tim Ballard, and you know him, and the things he sees are horrors. Okay, these are horrors that you can't even begin to understand. That is not what we saw in Jeffrey Epstein. It's not, like I said, it's not great. And there was underage victims, I understand, but the overall narrative, I don't think is factual.
All right, guys, good Thursday to you. All but one member of Congress voted for the release of the Epstein files. All but one. A guy by the name of Clay Higgins. And I'm going to tell you this. I've seen a lot of votes and excuses. You know what I like about this Clay Higgins guy? This is what he wrote. He said, I have been a principled no on this bill from the beginning. What was wrong with the bill 3 months ago is still wrong today. It abandons 250 years of criminal justice procedure in America. As written, this bill reveals and injures thousands of innocent people, witnesses, people who provided alibis, family members. If enacted in its current form, this type of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released in a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. Whether you agree with that or not, what I actually like is the fact that the guy's principled. He believed in something and he voted on it. And the easy thing would have been to vote with everyone else and make it a unanimous vote. And I actually like that about this guy, that he stuck his ground when everybody else was saying go the other way. And I would say that, like, because it's easy to do the easy thing. And it was funny when Mike Johnson had apparently the same concerns, but he was assured that the Senate would, address some of these about the judicial process. You know what the Senate did? Nothing. It accepted it by unanimous consent and sent it to the president's desk. So he got screwed. But this guy, Clay Higgins, I actually give him credit for this. And it was actually interesting. And then you had a bunch of these texts come out about this Virgin Islands Congresswoman, Plaskett. And she was texting with Epstein in the middle of a hearing and saying, like, oh, he's a constituent. Guys, I've been doing this for 30 years. No one texts a constituent in the middle of a hearing about questions that they're being asked. It just doesn't happen unless you're a major donor or a major figure. So this idea that she's trying to make it seem like some kind of conspiracy theory is crazy. And then when Hakeem Jeffries got asked about it, he was like, oh, I mean, it's amazing. And by the way, now he's getting caught up on it because he signed some fundraising appeals to Jeffrey Epstein. This is the thing. These Democrats, I'm telling you, I've said this for a while. They better be careful because I don't think that they fully appreciated all the stuff that was coming out. And now that President Trump has called their bluff, well, there you go. Anyway, tomorrow, big panel coming your way. Caroline Downey, Adam Gillette, and Sarah Gonzalez are going to join us. And then Friday, Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. He's always great. Please make sure you're subscribing across platforms. It's a super helpful thing. So if you're an audio person, go to the video. If you're a video person, go over to Apple and Spotify. It doesn't cost you anything, but it's super helpful to us. And as I like to say, it always gives you a backup. If you're sitting on your computer, you get to watch the YouTube or the Rumble version. If you're out running or running errands, you could always listen to the audio version. So, and it's, like I said, just to be full disclosure here, it's super helpful. All right, before I bring in Jessica Reed Kraus, and I'm going to tell you this, guys, of all the people that have covered MAHA and Jeffrey Epstein, she is by far the most preeminent person. She goes to trials. She goes down first source documents. And so if you really want to understand, and I think you're going to be shocked by this conversation, I say that respectfully, you are going to be shocked by what she knows. And if you don't follow her newsletter every day, House and Habit, you should. She goes down rabbit holes that nobody else will. She digs harder than anybody else. She talks to first-hand sources, to victims, to legal people, all sorts of. So I'm telling you, you're never going to hear a conversation like we're about to have with anyone else. Before I bring her on, it's that time of the year again. This is the time when you're going to be gathering with folks. You're always looking for a great gift, either to give or to have ready when people come over. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Kexi cookies do not disappoint. It's a family-run bakery that makes gourmet cookies the right way with real butter, real pure sugar, vanilla, and ingredients that you can actually pronounce. So if you're going to snack and have something little, indulge a little, a Kexi cookie is the way to go. These things are like your grandma used to make. It's unbelievable. They're perfect for sharing or giving as a gift, or let's be honest, having them for yourself to maybe indulge a little. I'm telling you, these things are absolutely amazing. They're thick. They're soft. They're so, so good. And right now they've got the Kexi Christmas box. You remember we had the Halloween box? We've got the Christmas box now. It's got all sorts of limited edition flavors. It's the perfect gift. These things always sell out. So I'm going to tell you this right now. Order your Christmas box by going to Kexi, KEKSI.com. Kexi.com. And if you want to grab something else for their site, use code Sean, SEAN 15 for 15% off. I'm telling you, this is a gift that will impress and no one else is going to have it. Go to Kexi, KEKSI.com, code Sean 15. All right, guys. Speaking of cooking, if you are a griller, if you are a person who loves eggs or omelets in the morning, you've got to get this Firecracker Farm hot salt dispenser. This is either great for you if you're the big cooker, or if you're looking for the gift for somebody this time who loves to cook or bake or grill. I'm talking about this. This is an unbelievably great product. It's a small batch hot salt. Okay. It adds a level of flavor and kick that nothing else I've ever tried. It's not like it's blended hot salts. It is so sophisticated. It adds a savory heat. I'm not talking about like a burning. It's just, it adds a level of deliciousness that you're never going to get in anything else. And check this thing out. It comes in this sleek laser etched stainless steel push grinder. You just one click. I'm not going to do it because it'll go all over the place. But this thing is amazing. They only make this stuff in small batches, so it does sell out. You're going to want to get this as a gift. You cannot get it on like Amazon or anywhere else. So get it now ahead of Christmas. Go to firecracker.farm. So instead of .com or .edu, firecracker.farm. Use code SPICER for 10% off your first order. Firecracker.farm. Use code SPICER for 10% off. All right, without further ado, the author and founder of the great newsletter House in Habit, Jessica Reed Kraus. Jessica, thanks for coming back on the show. A lot to get to today.
There's a lot going on.
A lot going on. All right, well, the Senate has sent the bill to release the Epstein files to the president's desk. He says he's going to sign it. I guess the first thing I just want to ask you is, like, you've been covering this intimately for a while. How do you think it was handled?
Horribly.
Why?
Well, I think the initial rollout, first of all, I think that the case is so convoluted that not too many people in the country even understand it. And that goes for some of these politicians. And so I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and it was built into something that maybe it's not. And so there's general confusion about what the files are. You know, some people think there's a list of clientele and that it's cabal, you know, ripping kids off the streets and they're hiding in underground tunnels and stuff. So it's been really hard to try and translate what I've learned, and my opinions have changed throughout. But I think the initial, you know, this was something that Republicans ran on. They were going to expose the files, and that it's been used as a political football. But now that it's here on the desk, it's maybe not what people were led to believe. So how do you wrangle a rabid media and misconstrued public perception to deliver what these files are? You know, and of course, I have a different take on it because I was at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, and that is not been properly translated either.
So what do you think, like, let's start, before we get to her, let's start with the files. What is it that you think maybe the top few things that the American people don't fully get or appreciate about this case?
I guess the best way that I can explain it now is that the closer I've got and the more sources I've spoken to, this is something that was mangled by fictional accounts by some of the victims. And the reason the story is so webbed and confusing is because some of the victims were also co-conspirators. So, you know, there's a lot of internal suing. Some of the victims sue some of the victims. They were acting as co-conspirators. But the problem is, again, not every victim is equal. So yes, there was young girls who showed up and they were disgusted by this pervert who it was very sort of clinical, these 45-minute massages, and they made $300, $400. And they left. They never came back. So you'll never hear from those girls. What we're hearing from right now is women who were, the women on TV right now were college aged, paid for sex, traveling the country, traveling the world actually on these yachts and private planes. And they've made millions of dollars from the Epstein Fund, but now they're revamped as victims of rape. So to try and translate that for the American public is not a popular opinion, but I think the files are really maybe more. I think it comes down to maybe Jeffrey Epstein was a rich man in Palm Beach who was surrounding himself with beautiful young women as an incentive to get other people, interested in his lifestyle. And I don't know that I don't think people were coming to him and signing off and having sex with girls. He wasn't like a pimp. So
But
I
so
don't know, there's a clientele list.
when you say that some of these victims are co-conspirators, I'm confused because it's the first time I've heard that. There were a bunch of women standing behind Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Massey the other day. Are those women? So I don't understand. I've sort of maybe put everyone into the victim bucket because I think if you're
Well, I think
peddling
that's what
around for
everybody's
sex,
done.
right? But why you're using different? Like I'm trying to understand because I believe that if you're treated inappropriately or pimped out for sex, that's a horrible thing. And then you're saying that might entirely be the case, or that some of these people are quote co-conspirators. Just go down that for a second and explain that.
Well, that absolutely is the case, and that's not really a debatable aspect of this. Virginia Giuffre was doing what Ghislaine Maxwell is accused of doing, and there was a lot of these women who wanted to take the place of Ghislaine Maxwell because she was, well, a lot of them were actually in love with Jeffrey Epstein. And so it's this twisted dynamic, right? And none of it's great. Like none of these people are excusable, but these women were college age and the stories and the original police reports and the depositions have changed dramatically through the years. So unless you've tracked that, closely, you're not going to see it. And media is not going to go in and question women. That's just like, we're not allowed to do that. And I've obviously been criticized for years because I just think the believe women thing is not helpful to the justice system or anyone, but yes, so they would bring in other girls, and at her Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, we saw proof of that. So it's confusing because the journalist I've been promoting, Jay Beecher, he has audio of Carolyn is one of the victims who testified. She was underage. Now she was brought in by Virginia. So her mother is furious because Virginia's been sainted in the eye of the public while Ghislaine Maxwell's been demonized. So it's just a case of where this isn't a black or white thing. It's not clear cut victim and villain. But if you try to relay that to the public, it's not easy.
But so do you blame the media then for not giving us the full story or explaining the roles of some of these individuals?
I usually always blame the media, yeah, because to me, I look at, when I went into this case, I was fine to believe whatever. I had no preconceived conception of any of this. I didn't really know a lot about it. I thought I was going to show up at this trial and there would be bombshell, explosive information and clientele. I thought this was it. We were going to get the files. But as I've gotten deeper into it, I've realized that media has really selected a narrative. And I mean, Sean, this is the case with all of these trials that I'm invested in. It's like one popular documentary decides the narrative. And if you go against that, or if you question the other side of it, which the art of journalism should be finding the other side of the story. What did we overlook? And that's what I've done with this case. And so it's been really hard to get people to understand my point, but I have the facts. Like if people are following, these aren't opinions. This has all been documented, just overlooked by media.
So what do you think is going to come out in this release of emails? Like what else are we going to find?
Well, what do you think? I'm going to ask you, what do you think we found so far? What do the files look like so far to you? What do the emails tell us about any of it?
I mean, to me, it sounds just like a lot of. I mean, first of all, the emails that have come out recently don't seem to say much. It's, does this guy know anything, or this guy's a jerk, or like it seems like a lot of like
Gossip?
eighth grade back and forth about who's a bigger jerk. So I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm asking you, because to be honest with you, this idea that like, oh, the dog hasn't hunted or something about Bubba. And when I've asked people, they'll say, oh, that's not what you think it is. Or that's just, and by the way, we can't believe Epstein. So that's why I'm kind of like, what else are we going to find out? Because maybe you're right. I have this narrative in my head. This guy, Epstein's just a total perv, creep bag that, had dudes that he wanted to do business with getting connected to him so that he could pimp out young girls. That's the narrative I have in my head anyway.
So I think you're pretty, I think you nailed it so far. That's what I'm seeing too. We're getting these emails and they're trying to spin headlines out of them, but it's essentially a bunch of rich guys gossiping about other rich guys and like, should we have a Peter Thiel over for dinner? What's so and so doing? Who's he with? Like, who's the girl he brought? Like, it's all a lot of really badly misspelled, like Jeffrey Epstein's grammatical errors. The man could not spell, but I
I
talked to
got. I
Mark.
will say, if you pull my emails out, you're going to find my grammar and my spelling suck too. So if that, unless
Well,
that's a
I was
federal
telling
crime,
Mike, Mike's always, he's always like worried about his spelling. I was like, I promise you spell better than Jeffrey Epstein, if that makes you feel any better.
I don't think that's going to
Um,
make him feel better. I think your husband. I think your husband has a lot better qualities to worry about than whether or not his spelling is on par with Epstein.
so no, I think the files, I mean, the bombshell they tried to say was Trump said he knew about the girls. It's ridiculous. Everyone in Palm Beach at that time knew about the girls. Jeffrey Epstein, that's what he wanted his reputation to be. He was flaunting it. This wasn't secret. He had beautiful young women draped all over the furniture just at parties as like decoration. And I don't know that it's even changed that much. I mean, you go to Palm Beach, you know what it's like. The yacht culture is still, this is a thing. Rich men will have
But isn't
beautiful
there a
women around.
line, Jessica, between like 18-year-olds or I mean, there is a legal like sign of consent. Number one, and number two, there are people that if you're poor, that and someone's offering you money and then kind of trafficking. I mean, like to me, there's a line between a consenting adult and somebody who's 17, even 18, which is legal, but I would argue inappropriate to be pimping around young people with the promise of money.
Right, and I agree with you. And but the case, the point that's going missed is Jeffrey Epstein was the man so far that we have discussed. Like the only evidence we have right now is that Jeffrey Epstein was having sexual relations with underage girls. Most of them that I am aware of were college age and legal. But yes, there was underage girls, and I. But he's the one who he is the pervert here. He's dead.
Right.
So to say that Ghislaine Maxwell needs to serve his a 20-year sentence to me is insane. You can't say that she's not guilty or she's there's no sex trafficking and there's no blackmail, but she's going to serve a 20-year sentence for the man who, in my eyes, she's sitting there for Jeffrey
Is there
Epstein.
any
He's
evidence
dead.
that she knew about? I mean, because I think the one thing that we can all agree on is that if you're under 18, which is the legal age of consent, I think in almost I think there are some southern states that allow 16, but the point is, I would argue anything under 18 should be general agreement that that's off limits. And so, does Ghislaine Maxwell, was she part of that of the underage girls in getting them into the system?
Well, I've never maintained that she's innocent in this. I think she was desperate to please him. I think she was madly in love with him, and I think he manipulated her, and I think he was terrible to her. And I think, a lot of these victims we were encouraged to overlook as imperfect victims, right? Because they did come and bring other girls. They repeated the cycle and brought other women in. But with Ghislaine, you weren't allowed to ask any questions because to me, it kind of made sense that she grew up in the household that she did under, serving powerful men in these elite circles. And then she went on to serve the same role for Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not excusing her. I'm just saying I understand that all of this is complicated. And why are we making certain excuses for some women but not other? If we're going to have the conversation about consent and all of this, like I think we should be honest about it. And no, I do think she, of course, I think she knew what he was into, but she also left, she tried to get away from him, and nobody ever covers that part of her life where she tried to actually get out of his orbit and he was really manipulating her. But there's women who are protected in that sweetheart deal who are living in mansions right now who overtook the role of Ghislaine Maxwell. So I'm just saying, is that fair? Is that justice? What's fair in this
Right.
case?
So the thing that I find interesting is that, to your point, like when we say everybody knew, I guess the question that comes to my mind is what did everybody know and what's the timeline, right? That's the two other things that are blurry in my mind. When you hanging around with young, attractive women is not a crime, right? And if you're a rich dude, I'm sure that there's countless examples of rich guys, whether it's Palm Beach or Palm Springs, that have a boat or a big, beautiful house and have a ton of young, attractive women hanging around with them. That's maybe creepy, not illegal. So the question that I want to ask you is like, one, what's the timeline? When did we know that he was a scumbag? And when did we know that this was crossing the line into women under 18?
Well, I'm going to say that's probably hard to really know because no one is being honest about their association with Jeffrey Epstein. In my opinion, the smarter approach would have been for, let's use the president as an example. Had he come out and said, I was friends with Jeffrey and Ghislaine, everyone in Palm Beach was, we were all connected in this circle, in this, they were all in this same social circle. It makes sense. I think if everyone was just honest about it, because now you're setting yourself up for everything looks suspicious. If you're saying like, did he send the birthday card? I don't know. It seems like he would send his friend a birthday card. I think had they been honest about it, it doesn't mean that everyone was aware of what he was doing because even Ghislaine Maxwell in that proffer with Todd Blanche, she says, this was a progressive thing. This is not the man I met. Like this, his perversities really progressed and they got worse. So I, if we go back, I mean, what we do have documented was Donald Trump and him had a falling out. I think they were very competitive. And I think there was a real estate deal that poisoned, it was bad blood from there. So now they're enemies and competitive enemies. They want to take each other down. And he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was hitting on one of his staffers' daughters, right? So I mean, we're going back, what was it, 30? Is this 30 years? Was it 30 years ago? So you're having modern media and like 20-year-old kids interpret what Palm Beach was in the 90s. And so it's just people aren't really discerning enough to say what is the crime here? To me, the criminal was Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think there was a huge trafficking ring. And I think that's what we've been led to believe. And now it's really hard to reel it back in and try and get the news out and the files out because it's not what people want. They want the most salacious version of it. And now the Trump administration has done a horrible job at rollout. I think they should set a timeline up and walk people through it's not going to go away. And so when there's a lapse in information and evidence, people are going to fill it with conspiracy and, assumptions.
Yeah, and that's what I've argued for some time. Just get it all. Sit in the briefing room. Here's everything that we have. Here's victim statements that we can't release for obvious reasons. Walk you
Yes.
through it because to me, you're right. Like I'll admit, I don't. For a lot of individuals, I just don't find this that as much interesting. I know why people care, and I cover it for obvious reasons because there's a House vote on it, and the president's going to sign it. But I'm not sure I really want to go back in time and relitigate when somebody crossed the line to being a pervert. I want the victims to get justice. And that's the thing I want to ask you about. Like you mentioned this fund. Like talk to me when members of Congress and other people say, we want these victims to get justice. You mentioned some people living in a house. Like, what's this Epstein fund? Like who's getting money from it? How do you get money from it? Because when you're talking about this, that's the first time I'm hearing about like people living high on the hog.
Yeah, that's the problem is there's not a lot of media who's helping me out with this story, but these are the facts. And this has come from talk to many lawyers and people involved on all sides, the Maxwell side, the Epstein side, all of it, as well as the victims. One of my sources is a victim who was involved in that scene for 5 years. Now she has a very different account of it. She said, we were not kept in cages. They treated us very nice. We were gifted fancy things, and we traveled the world, and we went to fancy parties. And so she has a very different account of what Jeffrey Epstein was. But it just seems like there's only one version that's accepted, and it's a forced victim of rape. That's not what I saw in the trial. That's not what I've seen in the evidence. And to understand it is we can't even blame Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's making a huge mistake, but I think it comes from misinformation. They want to believe that it's a cut and dry case. It's victim and villain, and it's not. But so the victim fund is a really, really tricky thing because it was set up to pay out these victims, and the worse the abuse, the more money you got. So if you were on the island as a 24-year-old and you were there willingly taking money, that story is not going to profit you. That's not going to profit. So now if you're a rape victim of Jeffrey, you get money. If you're also touched by Ghislaine Maxwell, you get more money. So you have to understand there's corruption at every level. Even the prosecuting lawyers who are supposed to be the good guys in all these documentaries, they're selecting victims who will serve the narrative. And because Epstein's dead, they refocused everything on Ghislaine Maxwell. She was not named in any indictments prior to his death. All of it shifted because they needed a living body to sue, convict, and profit from. So
When I talk, when I was talking to Alan Dershowitz the other day, I asked him point blank, do you think that she deserves a pardon or a commutation or what have you? And it was funny because he looked at it very analytically and said, if you're convicted of these crimes, this is what you'd get. And this is where you should be, meaning you should be in a minimum security prison based on historical precedent of where someone of that level would go. And he said exactly what you were saying. He said, basically, she is serving his sentence. So if President Trump
I saw that clip.
Yeah, if President Trump said to you, you've covered this case, you know her, you've read through all the court documents, should I commute her sentence? What would you tell him?
I would. I really wish I could sit down and talk to him about it because I don't think, I really genuinely don't believe anyone in politics right now understands the story. And I think he does. He knows exactly what this was. And I do think he was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I think he likes her. That's why he won't trash her. So it's no secret
Did they
that I
know
would
each other
favor.
well? Did they know each
Yeah.
other?
Yeah, because she was good friends with Ivana. But she was good friends with everyone. She was good friends with Mary Kennedy. She knew Bobby Kennedy. Ghislaine knew everyone. And the problem from the start was the lies. Just if everyone would have come out and said, we liked her, we were friends with her, we didn't know what was going on behind closed doors, it would be a whole different story. But it's the buildup that really has tainted everything. But yes, it's no secret I'm in favor of a pardon. I don't think she should be in jail for 20 years. I think she served time. She spent 2 years in solitary confinement, which is torturous. And I don't I don't believe the narrative about her. I don't think like I said, I've never called her innocent or tried to excuse her role in this. I'm just saying I don't agree with the way her story's been told, and I would absolutely support a pardon or commutation for her. I think she served time, and the other women are all cleared and living free under that agreement. The government broke that agreement to make sure they had somebody to convict because they need a face behind, justice. They need to show justice served.
But I think, as I said earlier, one of the narratives is that a lot of these victims were young, underage girls being sort of trafficked. Is that not the case, or is it? I mean, again, is it like, oh, well, there's only 3 of them, or is it no, there were none of them, or is it, yeah, there were a lot, but I mean, like, well, that to your point, like, I think a lot of us have bought into what we've been told through the mainstream media about who she is and her complicity in this.
Right. And so that's covering her trial really taught me everything I needed to know moving forward because it showed me that I couldn't trust mainstream media. We all sat in that trial, and I think majority of journalists agreed. I don't know that they thought she could be convicted on the evidence provided, but that's not what they wrote, and that's not what they were allowed to write. I was right. I was the only one writing what we all kind of concluded. But it's just, I mean, if there's so many underage women, why are they not on the cover of the New York Times and standing behind Thomas Massey? Why is it all women who are photographed in these islands as college age girls who were there for years? I know it's not popular to say that if you board the yacht 25 times, you might not be a victim, but at a certain point, we have to be honest about these things because I think it takes away from the real idea of trafficking. It's like we're manipulating these terms. To me, trafficking is children who are ripped off the streets against their will and placed in captive and tortured, and terrible things happen, which I just talked to Tim Ballard, and you know him. And the things he sees are horrors, okay? These are horrors that you can't even begin to understand. That is not what we saw in Jeffrey Epstein. It's not, like I said, it's not great. And there was underage victims, I understand, but the overall narrative, I don't think is factual.
So obviously, I read your newsletter all the time, and the in-depth reporting, the recordings, the firsthand accounts, which I think are, to your point, important. But there's a lot of people out there, like I would say, journalistically grifting off of this story, claiming to be experts. Is there anyone that, like, whether it's Michael Wolff or anyone else, that you'd say, if you read them, that's your fault for sucking? I mean, like, I look at anything Michael Wolff says and just immediately discount it.
But I'm still learning that lesson because I didn't really know who Michael Wolff was. So when he started putting all this out, I would text my friends like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this." And I had to, again, it's so hard to get the facts right now as a normal person. I mean, we spend all day reading news and stuff, but like think about if you're a normal American, you get home at 6 o'clock at night and you just want to know what's going on. It is almost impossible to know who Jeffrey Epstein was and what all of this madness is. So, of course, with any of the stories now, there's a lot of grifting going on. And it's infuriating because we already have mainstream that has sanitized the version that they want. And now you have these grifters online who just want to make these like 2-minute viral clips. But there's no, I mean, even Thomas Massey was standing up there explaining how Epstein's orbit worked, and it was completely inaccurate. So it's really hard to get control of the truth here. And I mean, I've almost wanted to give up, but I've spent so much time on it. I feel like, I can't because it's infuriating to watch the spin. And Michael Wolff is so great. I mean, are we pretending like he wasn't Epstein's best friend?
I know.
Like,
But the guy's
like
giving
he's,
him PR advice. I mean, he was literally like, here's how you should play this.
I also love that he's like, and then this happened on the plane. And we're like, so you were on the plane. He's like telling on everybody what they're doing on the plane or in the parties. And I'm like, so you were at the parties and on the plane. Like, it's just, I mean, it's comical in some aspect.
All right. I want to talk about MAHA, but I have two more quick questions
Okay.
and then move on. Do you think that there are more people? We saw Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, close advisor to a lot of Democrats, step back from public life even further today, this morning, saying he's stepping off the board of OpenAI. From what your reporting has shown you, do you think that we're going to see more public figures, elected or not, get caught up in this and have to explain their involvement with Epstein as these files are released?
I think it has the potential to be really, really messy moving forward because the truth has been mangled. And so any mention at all, I mean, if so you went to an Epstein, they're trying to say, oh, Jared Kushner had Epstein over to a party and he went. So we're now, people are implicated just for associating with him. And so I did get, when Trump said he didn't want to just throw the files out to the wind because he thought it would incriminate a lot of innocent people. That is the truth. I understand. He's right because we don't have, media is so warped that the truth is nobody has a good grasp on what this was. And so any implication at all, I mean, they ran with headlines that Trump was in a kitchen with girls in bikinis. Like that was the headlines everywhere. So yeah, I think you're going to see step downs and stuff, but I don't know that it's just and fair because we don't have a media we can trust to really decipher what is criminal or.
But I do think that there's a difference between, I know a lot of people, because, I've been in Washington for a while. I know a lot of scumbags. There's a difference between being a scumbag, being creepy, and doing illegal things. And I think seems to me the big question is it's like, I saw Katie
Yeah.
Couric answering these questions the other day because she was at an event with George Stephanopoulos at his house. And one of the questioners was like, well, you didn't see all these women. And she's like, well, I guess I should have known better. And so where's the line between knowing that someone's like, hey, this is a little too far? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you walk out of a room sometimes, maybe it's someone double dealing something or whatever. And you're like, wow, that was over the line.
Right. I mean, it's just so right now we're just going through and picking through social settings that we have proof of and that happened 30 years ago. I don't know what people, we don't know what any of these people knew. And unless we find evidence of crimes, I don't know. I mean, are you going to be implicated because you went to a party or you invited Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, he was an investor in all of these young visionaries. So there was a lot of incentive to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He had a
Well, it's like
private
Harvey
plane.
Weinstein, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, that's just, yes. So these people get to where they're at and they become, you know, prominent figures that are generous and they have things to offer people. They want money. I mean, Epstein donated to everyone who was up and coming then.
so do you think Prince Andrew actually has something to hide, or does he just not want to discuss it? I mean, a guy like him, same thing as Larry Summers. He's walking away, walking away, walking away, settlement. But is it like maybe he crossed the line, or there was some? I mean, that because again, I get it. Like you look at someone like Alan Dershowitz, right? He fought back and he made it very clear,
Yeah.
I'm innocent. I got the receipts, and everyone now pretty much agrees that he was absolutely right. He was falsely
Yeah.
accused. Whereas Prince Andrew, from what we know, it looks like settle, 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 back away, back away.
You know what? I will be honest. I don't know what I think about Andrew. I don't. I know that Virginia was of age when he was accused of sleeping with her. So she was legally of age in the UK. Again, not great. But I don't know if he I don't know actually what I think about Andrew. I have strong opinions on everyone else. I knew Alan Dershowitz was innocent, and I'm glad that he fought back because he was the first to say, "No, I want to go to trial." And
Right.
she can't go to trial because she's not a credible witness. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the truth. And I was really happy that he refused to back down. Now, someone like Andrew really couldn't go to trial. You cannot be a royal family or a member of the royal family and
Uh,
bring all this chaos and spectacle to the United States. So that was not an option for him. He gave her the payout, which, by the way, she did not donate, like she said. So her charity was empty. There was nothing was donated. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff with where the finances went. But that's the thing is this became a profitable angle is to say because people are terrified as soon it is radioactive. People
yeah.
who would defend Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell there's not you can't you're done. You know,
All
you
right.
can't.
Yeah. My last question. Do you think from all of your reporting, what you've seen, there's always this controversy about whether he killed himself or not? Where do you come down on that?
Well, that's what we're trying to decide right now. You know, I talked to the prison. That's the goal this right now because I'm talking to Nick, who was in the jail cell when he died, so he heard it. But I'm also talking to Mark Epstein, who says that his evidence points absolutely to a murder homicide cover up. So
That's his brother,
I'm
right?
I that's his brother. So I was ideally hoping the two men could talk and kind of compare notes, but we'll see.
Okay. Um, I want to move on to Maha because it's interesting. You used you said initially like these documentaries set the tone. And I feel like that's what's happened to some degree in an analogous way with Maha, which is for the longest time we were told, oh, all this stuff is fine. All of these drugs are okay. Ultra processed foods are a good idea. And Bobby Kennedy just started scratching at that and saying, maybe it's not that good that we're having ultra processed seed oils. Maybe it's not good that we have these dyes. And slowly but surely, the mainstream media, I think, suddenly just went like, there's a ban. Like somehow they discovered it themselves. Explain to me how important for someone like you this Maha movement has been.
I mean, it's been life changing. I think it's one of the greatest success stories in political history. He went from being censored and silenced and um, ridiculed to being in charge of American health. You know, under the Biden administration, Bobby Kennedy he was listed under the disinformation dozen. So his account was taken down. He was silenced because he was spreading the messages that he's still talking about. He was questioning vaccines and he was openly criticizing Fauci. And it's been incredible to see, they always called him the long shot candidate. And I mean, as you know, I started tracking him right away, that because of the mothers in my audience were invested in him. And I mean, we're so happy to see where he's at right now and to even be having these conversations. It's not even so much what policy is happens or goes through. It's more to me that we're having the conversation and we're all questioning what we're putting in our bodies and what foods, just looking at the back of ingredients. Like Americans were not doing that on a large scale.
What do you think's been like the most significant MAHA achievement in the first, where are we, like 10 months?
I mean, if according to my audience, it's just the vaccines being looked at and re-examined and saying, this is not right. We didn't get this right. Like maybe we don't combine all the shots. Maybe a newborn baby doesn't need a hepatitis B shot on their first day of life. How do you, it's just looking at things that never made sense and having the science now to validate the skepticism. And Bobby, he's very articulate. He has a wealth of knowledge. His mind is like an encyclopedia. So we finally have this man up there who is willing to stand up for all these women who have been really ridiculed and ignored by everyone for years. And they know that they definitely believe vaccines have harmed their children. So the fact that he's giving them a voice and respect is huge.
Who else do you think in the movement? Obviously it's led by Bobby Kennedy, but who else in your opinion is making a big impact in this wellness health space that's part of the administration?
Well, actually, you know what? It's interesting right now too, Sean, because what I'm writing about is not even really a glowing review of MAHA. It's kind of the fracturing internally what's happening because some of these regenerative farmers who I'm really interested in, they do make beautiful films and stuff, and they're showing how we could go back to these pure forms of farming. They feel a little cut out of the movement right now because they're sort of embracing this bioengineering, biohacking health advancements. And so the interesting conversation right now is where does that leave these organic aspects, And so those are the people I'm most inspired by, but they're a little frustrated right now because they feel like they weren't at the MAHA summit and they should have been. They weren't on
You mean
stage
they
then.
weren't
So
invited?
they weren't invited, yeah. And so if we're talking about putting pure ingredients in our food and what we're putting into our body, we have to honor the farmers who are making that happen, So I'm most inspired by the regenerative farming industry, but I would like to see them as a more prominent aspect.
And why weren't they invited? It was an oversight, or they're at war?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I've been talking to them this week. I'm going to write an article about it. I ran into them in the hallway, and what's the movie? Is it Kiss the Ground? Ryland is behind that.
Okay.
I don't know, these beautiful films. I saw them, and it's hard to deny that shouldn't be a part of MAHA. It's
But don't you? It's funny because MAHA took on like big pharma and big food, and then I feel like then there's like big ag, which is sort of all these companies that buy up these farms. And so the question is that a bridge too far? Did they not want to take it on? Did they not recognize it? Because that seems to me where the problem is, right? You've got a lot of big farm, not big pharma, but big farm,
yeah.
ag, that is basically doesn't want these guys to be able to do what they want with the soil and whatever, because it slows down the process. You can't manufacture as much food.
That's exactly what we're talking about. And that's where my focus is right now, because I can't really figure out why this is not a bigger part of the conversation. It starts with the farming, and we should be protecting our farmers. I mean, if we want to go back to cleaner food, we're going to have to support the ways we get it. So I'm kind of focused in the divide that's happening right now. You don't have some of the people in my group are not behind the wearables that track your health, and
Uh-oh.
um, It's interesting, right? I mean, there's sort of a little divide. Maha is like, wait, where are we going with this? Why are we pushing all the biohacking, but we want, clean soil. We want,
Yeah, I also don't think it's one or the other. Like, I think you can try to make yourself healthier, but
yeah.
also want cleaner food. I mean, I don't know that it's one or another.
Well, it's a good
What
conversation either way.
what is something that you've gotten to travel with Bobby Kennedy and his family? What is something that like the average person out there who might just be following what he's trying to do, but don't know the man himself? What is it that we need to know about who he is
Do you have an hour?
in 10
Um,
seconds?
well, I think he's such a interesting character because he is so um, knowledgeable, but he has sort of a childlike sense of adventure, and he will. I mean, if he sees a bird, he's totally distracted by whatever breed of bird he's noticed, and so he has to point it out. He loves nature. He's he wants everybody to jump off a cliff, and my Hayes, my youngest son, didn't. He was too scared when we were falcon hunting to have the bird land on his shoulder because it's like this. It's sort of intimidating, and Bobby was not letting him get away from that. He's like dragging him out, and he wants people to experience the things he loves. So he can be like a child, a 71-year-old nature kid.
There's always this question about the MAGA movement. Does it live and die with Donald Trump? And I wonder the same about MAHA. Does it live and die with Bobby Kennedy, or are there other people that can carry it on?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. I don't know that I can answer that because I'm just tracking, as it goes. But we just love him at the head of it right now. He's
But I'm
fun.
saying that like I'm
Like,
not. I don't. I think like a Casey Means or something like. Does somebody say I'm going to pick up the mantle when he sort of decides to step back, or is it
well,
when he leaves government or whatever he still becomes the guy that everyone's looking at?
well, I think, politics is so competitive. Everybody wants to be the next Bobby Kennedy or Donald Trump. But I mean, I don't think he's replaceable. I think he is the king, he's Maha. He'll always be Maha. And I hope that there'll be other people that come up from under it. But, that was why I got into politics in the first place, is we had Trump and Kennedy. They're such big dynamic names and characters, and I'm so entertained by it.
All right. The last thing I want to ask you is this: what is something that you're tracking or watching right now that's not on our radar screen yet?
Elizabeth Holmes.
Okay, why? She's the
Uh,
Theranos CEO that went to jail for apparently lying about a blood test of some sort, right?
yes, and this correlates to the MAHA movement. What we saw at that summit is undeniably linked to a lot of her technology that she developed. And so what I've been doing is talking to whistleblowers behind who have been, again, ignored by media. And what it's shaping to be is a completely different side of her case and trial, what was overlooked. And I think it's going to get very interesting when we reveal some of these overlooked emails and who is maybe behind her takedown.
Okay.
And we'll see maybe Big Pharma in the shadows.
All right. Jessica Reed Kraus, the author and founder of House in Habit. Thank you for being so generous with your time today.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Sean.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We got a great panel coming your way tomorrow. And then Friday, Congressman Tim Burchett, he will be with us as well. We got a great show coming your way every day this week and headed into next. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification button. Always go to SeanSpicer.com for my latest newsletter. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.